My dear brothers and sisters, in a world where deception, envy, and harmful intentions are often hidden behind smiles and kind words, Allah in His infinite mercy places a shield around certain women, protecting them from the traps of evil people. These are women whose hearts are connected to Him, whose lives reflect His guidance, and whose steps are directed by His wisdom. Today, we will uncover 8 clear signs that a woman is under this divine protection. A woman whose faith remains firm, even when tested with hardship, is a woman who has anchored her heart to the promises of Allah, understanding deep within her soul that trials are not signs of abandonment, but opportunities for elevation. She does not measure her relationship with her Creator by the ease of her circumstances, but rather by the strength and sincerity of her reliance on Him in every moment. When the winds of difficulty blow through her life, she plants her feet more firmly on the ground of faith, knowing that her Lord sees her, hears her, and is fully aware of every tear she sheds in the quiet corners of her solitude. She recalls that Allah has told us in the Quran that He will test us with something of fear, hunger, loss of wealth, lives, and fruits, and she knows that the glad tidings are for those who remain patient. Instead of allowing challenges to weaken her belief, she lets them polish her soul, burning away arrogance, self-reliance, and the illusion of control, leaving behind a heart softened and surrendered to Allah's decree. She refuses to be swayed by the whispers of Shaitan that tell her she has been forsaken. Instead, she draws closer to her Lord through extra prayer, Quran recitation, and dhikr, finding her comfort in the remembrance of Allah when the world offers no comfort at all. Her heart becomes a fortress built on trust in Al-Wakil, the ultimate disposer of affairs, and no amount of external pressure can shake its foundation. Even when people around her question her patience, when they tell her to give up, when they suggest that faith is pointless in the face of suffering, she smiles with quiet certainty, for she knows her reward is with Allah, and His timing is perfect. She has learned that the storms in her life are not meant to destroy her, but to wash her clean, to remove the dust of worldly attachment, and to leave her standing tall with renewed clarity about her purpose. She holds onto the rope of Allah with both hands, refusing to let go no matter how much her arms ache, because she knows that letting go would mean drifting into the ocean of despair. Her du'as are filled not just with requests for relief, but with pleas for guidance, for strength, for her heart to remain steadfast, for her soul to never turn away from the one who created it. She remembers the stories of the women who came before her. Maryam, peace be upon her, tested with isolation and accusations but steadfast in her devotion. Khadija, may Allah be pleased with her, who stood by the Prophet, peace be upon him, in the most difficult days of his mission. Sumayas, may Allah be pleased with her, who bore the weight of persecution with unshakable faith until her final breath. These women are her examples, her reminders that faith in hardship is not weakness, but the highest form of strength. She learns to view her trials through the lens of the hereafter, recognizing that every moment she chooses faith over frustration, patience over panic, and gratitude over complaint is a moment that raises her rank in the sight of Allah. She understands that this world is temporary, that its comfort is fleeting, but the pleasure of Allah is eternal. This knowledge becomes her shield against bitterness and hopelessness. Even when her heart feels heavy, even when she does not understand why something has happened, she trusts that the one who wrote her story knows the ending better than she ever could. Her faith, tested and tried, becomes like a diamond, unbreakable, shining brighter because of the pressure it has endured, and because she chooses to remain loyal to her Lord. No matter the season of life she finds herself in, Allah's protection covers her in ways she sees, and in ways she will only recognize in the hereafter, keeping her safe from the harm of people whose intentions are impure and shielding her from paths that would lead her away from Him. She instinctively avoids gatherings that lead to sin, because her heart has been trained to recognize the subtle signs of environments that displease Allah, and she treasures her connection to Him too much to put it at risk. There is a quiet discernment within her, a God-given awareness that allows her to sense when a space, a conversation, or a company of people is pulling her towards disobedience. She does not need to witness open wrongdoing to know when her soul is in danger. Even the early traces of gossip, indecent speech, or heedlessness from the remembrance of Allah are enough for her to quietly excuse herself. This wisdom is not accidental. It is the fruit of sincere du'as where she has asked Allah to guard her from misguidance, of years spent learning His commands, and of a heart that has been softened through acts of worship. She understands that the people we surround ourselves with shape the state of our hearts, and she chooses her company with great care, seeking the companionship of those whose presence draws her nearer to Allah, rather than further away. When she is invited to gatherings that she knows will include immodesty, backbiting, music that stirs desires, or conversations that weaken faith, she finds ways to politely decline without arrogance, because she values her spiritual safety above social approval. This does not come from a sense of self-righteousness, but from humility. She knows that no one is immune to temptation, and that protecting herself from environments of sin is a form of safeguarding the heart that Allah has entrusted her with. She remembers the saying of the Prophet that a person is upon the religion of their close friend, so she remains conscious of the influences she allows into her life. If she finds herself unexpectedly in a space where sin is taking place, she does not linger, making excuses for herself or convincing herself she can handle it. Instead, she removes herself as soon as possible, aware that the soul can be affected by what the eyes see, and the ears hear even if one claims to be strong. She replaces such environments with gatherings of dhikr, study circles, and companionship that uplifts her spiritually. Her calendar is filled with moments that feed her soul. Quran lessons, charity work, visiting the sick, helping the needy. And so she has little space left for places that corrupt the heart. She is not easily swayed by fear of missing out, because she knows that missing a gathering that is displeasing to Allah is in fact a blessing, not a loss. She has tasted the sweetness of gatherings where Allah's name is mentioned, where the angels surround the attendees, where mercy descends and tranquility fills the hearts, and this makes the noise and emptiness of sinful environments far less appealing. Even in her personal relationships, she sets boundaries with love and wisdom, explaining why she chooses not to engage in certain activities, and while some may not understand, she knows that her duty is to seek the pleasure of Allah before the approval of people. Over time, Allah increases her sensitivity to what is harmful and what is pure, making her spiritual compass more precise so that she avoids not just the obvious sins, but the pathways that could lead to them. She becomes a woman who can walk into any space and, within moments, know whether it is a place where her soul will grow or a place where her faith will be chipped away. This discernment is part of Allah's protection over her. He places in her heart a natural aversion to wrongdoing, a discomfort that does not allow her to remain in such spaces without feeling restless. She learns to listen to that discomfort and act on it quickly, understanding that one of the most dangerous things a believer can do is ignore the whispers of their conscience when it warns them to leave. The more she obeys these inner warnings, the stronger they become, until avoiding gatherings of sin is not a struggle but a second nature, a reflex built from years of choosing the safety of her faith over the fleeting pleasures of this world. Allah removes harmful people from her life before they can cause damage, and she comes to see this as one of the most profound signs of His mercy and protection. Often, she may not even realize at the time that someone's presence in her life was a threat to her peace, her dignity, or her faith, but Allah, in His perfect knowledge, sees what she cannot see and acts on her behalf. Sometimes the removal happens in ways that seem confusing or even painful. A friendship suddenly ends. A potential marriage proposal falls through. A trusted companion begins to distance themselves. Yet, unbeknownst to her, this is Allah shielding her from betrayal, heartbreak, or a path that would have led her away from Him. She learns through experience that not every loss is a misfortune. Some losses are in fact a rescue. She recalls moments when she was saved from people whose words were sweet, but whose hearts carried envy, whose smiles masked hidden intentions, or whose influence would have drawn her into sin. Even if at first she questions why certain relationships did not work out, she eventually notices the patterns, how every removal is followed by clarity, peace, or a new opportunity that aligns better with her values. She understands that Allah's protection often operates in the unseen, and that He may block certain doors not to deprive her, but to safeguard her from walking into harm. This realization deepens her trust in Him, so much so that when people leave her life unexpectedly, she responds with patience and prayer rather than desperation. She reminds herself of the Quranic truth that, perhaps you dislike something, and it is good for you. And she chooses to believe that the one who loves her more than she loves herself knows exactly who should, and should not have access to her. This does not mean she becomes cold or distrustful of others, but it does mean she entrusts her relationships to Allah, asking Him regularly to remove from her life anyone who would harm her in her religion, her heart, or her peace, and to bring her only those whose presence is a source of goodness. Over time, she notices that her inner circle becomes smaller, but it is made up of people whose loyalty is genuine, whose advice is sincere, and whose influence is uplifting. She feels no need to cling to those who have been taken away, because she knows that Allah's plan is never accidental. When she reflects on past experiences, she can trace the thread of divine protection. How someone's sudden change in behavior revealed their true nature, before they could betray her in greater ways, or how a broken engagement spared her from a marriage that would have been spiritually or emotionally destructive. She understands that sometimes the most dangerous people are not those who openly oppose her, but those who quietly chip away at her values, weaken her faith, or keep her from becoming the woman Allah created her to be. Allah, in His mercy, intercepts such people before their influence takes root, and while she may not see it in the moment, the wisdom becomes clear with time. This awareness makes her more grateful for unanswered prayers, for the doors that remained shut, for the people who walked away without explanation. She begins to see these moments not as abandonment, but as divine intervention. Allah stepping in to ensure that she is not harmed in ways she cannot yet perceive. And because she has experienced this protection repeatedly, she lives with a quiet confidence that Allah is always managing her affairs, even in the realm of relationships, and that anyone who truly belongs in her life will be kept there by His will, while anyone who is a threat to her well-being will be removed no matter how strong the connection seems. She experiences peace in her heart despite surrounding chaos, because her sense of tranquility is not tied to the state of the world around her, but to the nearness of her relationship with Allah. While others may become consumed by fear, anxiety, or restlessness when situations spiral out of control, she has learned to root her calmness in the certainty that nothing happens except by the will of the One who is all-knowing and all-wise. Her peace is not the absence of problems but the presence of trust, a trust that has been nurtured through years of turning to Allah in both ease and hardship. She remembers the Quranic promise that, indeed, in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find rest, and she lives by it, keeping her tongue moist with dhikr even when the noise of the world threatens to drown out serenity. In moments of crisis, she does not rush to panic or spread fear. Instead, she retreats inward to the safe space she has built through consistent prayer, Quran recitation, and reliance on Allah. She knows that peace is a gift He places in the hearts of His servants, who put their trust in Him, and it cannot be shaken by worldly events. Her calmness often confuses those around her. They may wonder how she can smile when plans are collapsing, how she can sleep when uncertainty looms, how she can speak with gentleness when tensions are high. But she understands that panic does not change fate, and worry does not open closed doors. This peace is the product of surrender, of releasing the illusion of control, and acknowledging that Allah is the true controller of affairs. She has learned to separate what she can act upon from what she must leave entirely in His hands, and this distinction allows her to conserve her emotional energy for what truly matters. Her heart becomes like a quiet garden protected from the storms raging outside. She hears the noise, she sees the chaos, but it does not uproot her because her faith acts as a wall around her soul. This inner stillness also makes her a source of comfort for others, as people naturally gravitate towards those who radiate calm when the world feels unstable. She does not claim this peace is effortless. She works at it through patience, gratitude, and constant renewal of her intention to please Allah. But over time, it becomes a defining feature of her character. She recognizes that chaos will always exist in some form, whether in the form of personal trials, societal upheavals, or global events, but she refuses to let it dictate the state of her heart. She reminds herself of the Prophet's example, how he maintained composure under pressure, how he smiled and reassured his companions, even in the most uncertain moments, and she strives to mirror that example in her own life. She views her peace as both a shield and a sign. A shield that protects her from the spiritual harm of fear-driven decisions, and a sign that Allah is with her, calming her heart just as He calmed the heart of the mother of Musa, peace be upon him, when she placed her baby in the river. Even when people try to provoke her, when their words or actions are designed to unsettle her, she remains anchored, knowing that reacting in anger or despair only benefits those who wish to see her shaken. This peace allows her to think clearly, to make wise choices, and to keep her priorities in line with her faith. It is not a denial of reality. She still feels pain, still experiences moments of sadness, but her baseline remains steady because she constantly returns to Allah as her refuge. She understands that the world will never be free of chaos, but her heart can be free of its grip if she continues to guard it with remembrance, patience, and reliance on the One who grants peace. She is blessed with wisdom that exposes deceit quickly, a gift from Allah that acts as a light in her heart, allowing her to see beyond the surface of people's words and actions. While others may be fooled by charming speech or polished appearances, she is able to sense when something is not genuine, when intentions are not as pure as they appear. This wisdom is not merely intelligence or worldly experience, it is a form of spiritual insight that comes from fearing Allah, seeking His guidance, and living according to His commands. She remembers the saying of the Prophet, that when a believer is mindful of Allah, He grants them a furqan, a criterion to distinguish truth from falsehood, and she experiences this in her own life when she is able to detect dishonesty before it causes harm. This discernment allows her to navigate relationships and situations with clarity, avoiding traps that could lead to betrayal, loss, or spiritual harm. She is not quick to accuse or judge, but she pays attention to patterns, words that do not match actions, promises that are repeatedly broken, behaviors that reveal arrogance or manipulation. Even subtle forms of deceit, such as flattery with hidden agendas or kindness used as a cover for exploitation, do not escape her notice for long. She relies on dua constantly, asking Allah to show her the reality of people and situations as they truly are, to expose what is hidden, and to protect her from being blinded by outward appearances. When she meets someone new, she does not simply assess their charm or social standing, she observes their character, how they treat others, and whether their behavior aligns with the principles of faith. This patience in forming judgments protects her from rushing into harmful alliances or trusting people who do not have her best interests at heart. Sometimes Allah reveals deceit to her through obvious signs, other times through subtle feelings of unease that she cannot ignore. She has learned to trust these instincts when they are rooted in taqwa, knowing that they are part of the protection Allah has placed over her. Even in professional or community settings, she can discern when someone's words are crafted to manipulate, when promises are empty, or when there is an agenda hidden behind a farce, aid of cooperation. This wisdom not only protects her from harm but also allows her to advise others, warning them gently when she sees dangers they may not yet recognize. She uses this gift with humility, never boasting about her insight, but quietly thanking Allah for it, and using it to uphold justice and safeguard her heart. Her ability to see through deceit makes her a stronger decision maker, as she is not easily swayed by temporary emotions, or the allure of false promises. She understands that deceit can come in many forms. From those who pretend to be friends while harboring jealousy, to those who appear religious outwardly, but act in contradiction to the teachings of Islam. And so she remains vigilant without becoming paranoid. Her trust in Allah is what balances her caution, ensuring that she does not become cynical, but remains hopeful that genuine, sincere people do exist. The more she exercises this wisdom, the more it grows, because she continues to feed it with Quranic reflection, prophetic teachings, and life experiences guided by faith. She knows that deceit is one of the tools of Shaitan to lead believers astray, and so she treats her ability to recognize it not as a personal achievement, but as a divine trust that she must protect and use righteously. This protection often spares her from long-term suffering, as deceit is most dangerous when discovered too late, and she praises Allah when she is able to recognize it early, even if the truth is uncomfortable to accept. Her prayers are answered in ways that protect her from unseen harm, even when she is unaware of the dangers that surround her. There are moments in her life when she prays for something with all her heart, believing it to be good for her. Yet Allah in His infinite wisdom withholds it, replacing it with something far better, or saving her from a path that would have brought her harm. At first, she may not recognize this as protection, but over time, as events unfold, she begins to see the unseen mercy in the unanswered prayer. She reflects on the Quranic teaching, that a person may love a thing that is bad for them, and dislike a thing that is good for them, and she humbles herself before the reality that only Allah knows the full picture. There are also times when her du'as are answered so subtly that she does not even realize the connection until later. A sudden change in circumstances, an unexpected delay, a relationship that naturally fades, a trip that gets cancelled. All of these may be ways that Allah shields her from harm she could not see. She recognizes that every sincere prayer is heard, and even if the answer is not immediate or visible, it is never ignored. This awareness deepens her consistency in turning to Allah for every matter, big or small, because she knows He is managing her life with perfect care. She remembers moments when she prayed for ease in a situation, and instead found that the situation ended entirely, closing a door she would not have had the courage to close on her own. At the time, it may have felt like a loss, but in hindsight, she sees that Allah removed her from an environment, or a person that would have harmed her spiritually, emotionally, or even physically. She treasures the du'as she makes in sujood, in the quiet of the night, in times of distress, knowing that each one is an act of trust and a request for divine intervention that extends far beyond what her eyes can see. She understands that protection from unseen harm is not only about people, it can also be about decisions, opportunities, or paths in life that look promising but hide struggles she is not prepared for. Allah may place obstacles in her way, delay her progress, or redirect her entirely, and she accepts these changes with patience, knowing they are part of His plan to guard her well-being. There are instances when she prays for guidance and Allah places a clear sign in her heart, removing any attachment to what she thought she wanted, and replacing it with contentment for what He has chosen. She has experienced the relief that comes after realizing she has been spared from a trap disguised as a blessing, and each time this happens, her faith in Allah's protective power grows stronger. She knows that, while she is making dua for safety from the harm she can imagine, Allah is also saving her from harm she could never anticipate. A conversation that might have planted doubt, a person who might have slowly drawn her away from her values, an opportunity that could have tied her to obligations pulling her from her faith. This constant unseen protection makes her more mindful in her prayers, so she not only asks for what she wants, but also prays for Allah to keep her away from anything harmful, whether she recognizes it or not. Even when others see only disappointment in her circumstances, she quietly trusts that Allah's unseen hand is working for her benefit, crafting outcomes that protect her soul above all else. Her heart rests in the belief that answered prayers are not always about getting exactly what she asked for, but about receiving exactly what she needs in order to remain under the shade of Allah's mercy, and away from the harm she cannot perceive.